Hey guys, it's Scott with Scottie B Cards, and in this video I want to talk about 3 players that could be undervalued heading into the baseball offseason. The baseball offseason is here. The Houston Astros are the World Series champions, and now we're preparing for another fun year in baseball card collecting / investing, whatever you want to do, whatever hybrid you have. Right now I want to discuss 3 players that could be under the radar. I actually asked my Instagram audience who they thought were under the radar, and I tallied each of their responses up, and this is the answer we had. We had Soto, Trout, and Betts as the top 3. Clear number 3, I think, had 140 responses, and those are the top 3. Julio Rodriguez, Ronald Acuna Jr., Arenado, Machado, Ohtani, and so forth. Anybody who had less than 3 I didn't include just because it got really watered down at that point. I'm not going to discuss Soto, Trout, and Betts past these little bit of slides. Mookie is down 50% since last year. This year he had 6.6 WAR. He actually won the Gold Gloves, going to win in a Silver Slugger. He had a great season, but he's still down, so he could be a good buy. Mike Trout is actually down 56%. He had that scary injury news, but he still had about 6.5 WAR as well with 40 home runs and 80 RBI, so it seems like a little bit of an overreaction. And then Juan Soto probably had the worst season of the 3, and he is down 55%, probably more to where he should be currently compared to other superstars. You can get almost 3 Mookie Betts for the cost of 1 Juan Soto. But let's jump into the actual players in this video. I didn't want to talk about those 3 because I talk about them all the time on my channel. If you want to see Mookie Betts, Juan Soto, and Mike Trout content, just watch any of my other videos. But now let's jump into the other 3 players that might be undervalued heading into the offseason. The first one is Ronald Acuna Jr. Ronald Acuna Jr. has had a very interesting turn in his hobby. In 2020, he was the 22-year-old young phenom. He had top 12 MVP voting with a 987 OPS. He was on top of the world, right? The year prior, he almost had a 40-40 season. We all thought he was going to get there. And then in 2021, he's having by far the best year of his career before he had an ACL tear injury in July that sidelined him. If he would have played the whole 2021, I believe he had a real shot at the MVP. He would have been a top 3 MVP vote getter, in my opinion, based off of how he was doing. He played 82 games and had 24 home runs with a 158 OPS, and he still had 17 stolen bases. That's actually on pace for 44 homers, 31 stolen bases, 6.6 WAR, and a 158 OPS plus. When Bryce Harper won it, he had a good year. Ronald Acuna Jr. could have stolen it from him potentially, especially because the Braves went on to win the World Series. All of the MVP voting happens prior to the end of the season, so postseason doesn't matter. But it really takes a hit out of his legacy, not even playing in the World Series, and on top of that, not actually winning the MVP award. Heading into 2022, people are really high on Acuna to be the same player. And that's just not a fair request because you don't have an ACL tear come back, and I think he came back in May or June or something crazy and put up the same numbers you did prior. But at the same time, I think none of us expected him to be not as good as he was offensively. You know, offensively, he had a 266 average, which is lower than his career average. He had a 764 OPS down from a 990 OPS and a 114 OPS plus, which is by far the worst in his career. And he did not have any power. 15 home runs in 120 games, and he grounded out a ton. His slugging percentage dropped over 100 points. His on base was just fine. It's just his slugging was not present in his game, and it really hurt his cards. Here is a chart showing Mike Trout, Bryce Harper, Mookie Betts, and Ronald Acuna Jr. The other 3, not Acuna, currently are viewed as potential Hall of Famers on a Hall of Fame path. So let's compare those active Hall of Famers to Ronald Acuna Jr., and we'll see he's lagging behind around age 24, but he's still pretty close to Mookie, Harper, and pretty far behind Trout, who has about 50 WAR at the same age. But this just shows you he can still bounce back. Mookie had a 10 WAR season this year, his age 25 season, and finished with around 30. Bryce was around 30. But if Acuna can get to 25 to 27, I think he'll be just fine on a historical pace, and people will buy his cards right back up like they always do once he performs. I already showed you his pace. I want to show a few more things why I like Acuna. He averages 5.6 WAR for every 162 games played, which is above the average Hall of Famer in right field. You can see his comparisons are Giancarlo Stanton, Frank Robinson, Cody Bellinger, and Cody Bellinger was good these years. So he really has been a great baseball player. So I think there's just been a big overreaction of the Braves not making the playoffs, and on top of that, Acuna not being the same guy, and all of these things. This is the big if. If you believe he's able to bounce back from injury next year, his cards are probably a decent buy right now. Granted, there's overall economic factors that might make it difficult to buy any cards. I'm not telling you to buy cards for that explicit reason. Up to you in your financial situation. But he seems like one that could be a breakout star, win comeback player of the year. I think he won it this year, but he could win it again next year if he has a 7 WAR season. And then what I just want to show is overall market. His Bowman chromatograph is actually down to $1,000, which is pretty cheap when you think about he was $4,000 in the beginning of this season, $3 to $4 grand. Now now it's down $2,000, 66%. So that's overall his whole market is completely down. And then same with his bat down, 62%. This is his short print rookie in a PSA 10, only 500 copies, and this is now only $700. Next up is Bryce Harper. You might be thinking, why is Bryce Harper on this list? Scott, Bryce Harper had a good postseason. Yeah, he did. He had a great postseason, actually, besides the World Series, but they didn't really pitch to him. But either way, with Bryce Harper, he is an interesting character because he has amazing years, usually followed by average or okay years. And we see that with his rookie year, won Rookie of the Year. This year wasn't bad, but he followed up with his 21 season with a not good season, and then had one of the best seasons that we've seen in a long time in 2015 out of nowhere. And then he came back with an 814 OPS and wasn't that good. And then he had a great season before he got injured. And then he had an okay season, and then he had a great season with Philly. I know these stats look like he had a better season in Washington, but overall his defense was so poor that he actually graded out much worse overall as a player. But we're seeing that again this year. We had the MVP season last year, a lot of hype. He was having an amazing season before his injury and Blake Snell hit him in the hand and broke his hand. Up to that point, his cards were trending upwards. I'll even show you that graph real quick. Here is his cards going up. Then he gets hit and his cards tail down. And it's not really fair because this always seems to happen with injuries for Bryce Harper. And he's only had MVP votes 4 times in his career and top 10 only twice, which is very abnormal for a superstar. And both those times was an MVP year. And he has that potential year in and year out, which is why I do like Bryce Harper. And people are trying to recognize him more. They like his game more. In 2012, he was viewed as a punk. Nowadays, he's viewed as fun, the way he plays. So take that how you will, if you like it or don't like it. But Bryce Harper's hobby is changing for that reason. And people really want him to be successful, which is why I think his cards could be a good potential opportunity heading into next season, as people are saying, man, they almost won the World Series. Bryce Harper was great. I think he'd go to MVP this year. I'm going to speculate and buy his cards. And I just want to show he's also averaging right around the Hall of Fame pace for WAR per 162 games played. He would be higher if he was a better defensive player and better base runner. But you can see his career comparisons are pretty good. You have Justin Upton, Tony Conigliaro, Frank Robinson, Andrew Jones, and Barry Bonds. You can't complain with those. Similar batters to age 29 is not juiced Barry Bonds, young Barry Bonds, who is still a Hall of Famer, but not the same Barry Bonds. And then Justin Upton and a couple other players like Mike Trout, no big deal. Duke Snyder, no big deal, and so forth. Do I think Bryce Harper should be valued like Mike Trout? I do not. I do not think Bryce Harper's an all-time great, but I think he is very, very good, and he's going to be one of the players remembered from this year. But I do think he is undervalued still, even if he's not Mike Trout level. Mike Trout's Bowman chromatograph is like $7,000. Bryce Harper, one sold for $600 the day after they lost the World Series, right around $800. So seems like that's a little cheap, but this is just over his whole market is down. Next player is Wander Franco. Wander Franco is the man who sparked the highest top sprint runs that we've seen since the junk wax era, with probably around 700,000 Series 1 rookie cards, which is kind of crazy when you think about that. But overall, Wander Franco had a disappointing year, and that can be a good thing, assuming he is the player we believe he is heading into his age 22 season. That is assuming that we think he can be better than he has been the last few years, but he's still been worth 6.1 WAR before his age 22 season. He's been good offensively and good defensively. Not great on either side, but he's been good. That's his floor. We've seen his floor, and this year he had 2.6 WAR in 83 games. His floor is around 4 WAR, in my opinion. 3 to 4 WAR. His ceiling, who knows? If he can have a power surge, because he hasn't had that yet, his ceiling is extremely high. He's a switch hitting shortstop. He actually doesn't do that great, I believe, against right-handers or against left-handers. One of the two, he doesn't do well on his platoons. But either way, Franco does present a very interesting opportunity. He's had so many rookie cards printed that people don't know what to collect. So if you're savvy enough and are able to identify what the right short print is or what the right parallel is, it could present an opportunity for you where you're able to pay off a year or two from now, potentially, assuming he lives up to that hype. He actually had a good year. A 117 OPS plus, I believe, was higher than Acuna. So he had a better offensive year than Ronald Acuna Jr. Yes, he was hurt. But either way, that's Wander Franco's floor with hardly any slugging as well. And in the minor leagues and in the big leagues, he has a great eye, hardly ever strikes out, and that will play to his advantage. Whether he's hitting balls the other way, he's okay doing that, whether he's walking more in the future. His percentile rankings tell that story. He has a low K rate, low swing and miss percentage, and he's just not hitting the ball super hard consistently, and he'll get to that point. The average is 6.5 WAR for 162 games played, which is above the average for a Hall of Famer, just showing he has that upwards potential. He also, again, here is outs above average. This is an accumulative stat, so over the year you can gain outs above average or lose outs above average. You can be negative, and he was a positive defender according to that statistic. And let's just look at his cards. Right now, he's at $736 for his Bowman chromatograph, which seems like it actually has some decent potential. I would not be surprised if this does drop more, and if it does drop more, if you believe in Wander Franco, it could present a very interesting and peculiar opportunity. So he's actually one of the top trending down players. Mookie Betts is below, which is crazy because he had a great season. But Wander Franco right here is down 18% overall as a player, which again just gives the opportunity, if you're feeling risky, to be the guy. So overall, again, I don't recommend buying any of these players because I like them. Buy them because because you like them. Buy them if you do your own research on any of these players from this list or anyone else you're thinking of right here. And if you believe in them, take a risk. I'm not saying cash out your 401k, but if you believe in them, see what happens heading into next year. But other than that, thank you for watching this video, guys. Let me know in the comments below if you agree or disagree with my takes, and I will see you in the next one.